Trusted American salary-based mortgage company consultants want to help you get into a better interest rate and save you some money. Lower your monthly payments. Go to trustedamerican.com and see how much they can save you today.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
That's right. Welcome to the show. This is Off Field Wednesday, January something or other. Playoff week. Very exciting week around here. The Broncos playing the Bills. We got a very special show for you today. I'm going to describe this show in a second, but I just want to tease the next couple of days because tomorrow we have a very special guest coming on off field. Benny Fowler, Super Bowl champion wide receiver for the Broncos, coming in here. Another episode on Friday with the three of us, Brandon, Krisztal, Liv Moods, and I. And then on Sunday, we got a watch along and a post game show. The watch along involves a former Denver Broncos quarterback, an all-around awesome dude, my buddy. He's sitting right here right now, Jake Plummer. How are you, man?
I'm really good, Nate. Happy New Year. It's
Yeah.
nice to see you, and excited for all things going on here in the beautiful state of Colorado.
Thanks, man. Do you subscribe? I think it was like a what's it called? Curb Your Enthusiasm guy, Larry. What's his name?
Yeah, Larry David.
Yeah. Do you subscribe to his thing? Like, how long can you say Happy New Year after the New Year? Because what is it? The 8th now? Are we? Can you still say
if
it?
you see somebody you haven't seen since the New Year, you're allowed to say Happy New Year.
So if you see someone in March that you haven't seen in a couple months,
no,
like,
as
Happy
long
New
as
Year.
it's still in January,
Summertime.
it's got to be January.
Okay.
But yeah, you post it. That's good because I've been saying Happy New Year, and it's now the 8th or the 9th or something.
Yeah.
And so
Maybe that was the last one. Maybe
probably
let's make it the
probably
last one.
Yeah,
All right,
you're
can,
right.
can I get you to commit to that? No more Happy New Year.
Yeah,
I want to be your
I won't
last,
say it
man.
again.
I want to be your
Okay,
last.
you could be my last. What do I say? Give me something to say. in
Hey,
replace-
man, how are you?
Hey, happy
How you been?
2025.
Or anyway, but all right. So I just want to dive into this playoff week because you are an experienced NFL quarterback. You've played in a variety of playoff games, home playoff games, away playoff games. You've watched the Broncos all season long. You've seen their maturation under young Bo Nix, a rookie quarterback. But you also always hear that the playoffs are different from the regular season. Is that true? How is playoff football different from regular season football, if at all?
Well, there's the obvious in the back of your head. You know, this could be the last game you play for the season.
Yeah.
And also it might not be. So you really got to take care of yourself. You got to look at the game in front of you with the hopes that you get to be going further on. You know, it's been a while for this team.
So does that make you a lot more pressure? Like, do you feel like tighter because of that?
Every game there's pressure. I mean, especially the last few games of the year, the Broncos have kind of been playing playoff ball.
Yeah.
I mean, they have 2 games to end the season. They have to win in order to get in. They don't win one in Cincy, but they showed very well their ability to play on the road and play in a hostile environment. And then at home against Kansas City, of course, without a few of their main playing, they looked really good. So Great tune-up for that. It's a rookie. There's a rookie quarterback. There's a pretty young team. I don't know how many of these guys have been in the playoffs coming from other teams. I know that Coach Payton and that staff will be ready, but yeah, there's pressure. Of course there is. You live in Colorado and play for the Denver Broncos. There's pressure in the preseason to show up. So now there's a lot of excitement. And I think that energy can be something we want to focus on, that energy that I think this team's showing me that they can play with anybody, and that's exciting.
So I think they're double-digit underdogs.
Yeah.
Right? Who gives big whoop? Right? Who cares? Or how are you approaching that in the locker room? No, nobody believes in us. We're going to show them. I mean, because okay, so I look about my experience with the Broncos, and most of it involved you, at least the playoff appearances. Yeah. After you left, we didn't make the playoffs, huh?
Funny thing.
Go figure.
Weird.
But the 3 years you were the starter, we made the playoffs all 3 years. First 2 years, we went on the road to Indy, incredibly hostile territory, incredibly loud crowd. We got beat pretty bad.
Yes.
Right. What was that like as a quarterback going into hostile territory in the playoffs, facing a juggernaut type of team that's been on everybody's leaderboard all year long? and then having to face kind of that sort of not just pressure, but the quality of the team, the loudness of the stadium, and the kind of the stakes, which are win and you keep going, lose and you go home.
Yeah, as a 2-touchdown underdog, that's
Were we
whether
2 touchdown underdogs?
no, you're saying the team.
Oh, they're like 10 points, but yeah.
They're 10 points to underdogs. So I think at this point you're not trying to gain confidence from someone else's judgment of what the game could come out to, and the odds makers. I mean, they're either confident or not. Like, this team seems pretty confident to me because Bo is a confident quarterback. You can see in his play, you can see how he handles himself on the sidelines. The word out of from the facility is that he's the real deal. So I don't think you're going to go into this with doubt now that they're 10-point underdogs of we have to prove to anybody. So there's no real, I don't think, motivation there. Different than college, say, when there's, I just went to that ASU Texas game, and ASU had been overlooked all year. Picked to finish last in the Big 12, and they win the Big 12. Here they are, 2 touchdown underdogs to Texas. Same kind of thing here. The Broncos weren't expected to do this. Now they're here. Ride that wave and be confident in everybody around you. The hostile environments, it's tough. It's really hard. We went again in 98 too, my other on the road experience in the playoffs, to Dallas, Texas Stadium. We beat them in 98. And then we went to Minnesota the year after. Again, a dome that they were piping music into the speakers on third, fourth down. It was absolute mayhem how loud it was. I could not hear myself screaming.
Wow.
Like this close, I could not hear myself. It was a horrible experience.
So how do you communicate?
You have to go on what you've done all year on the road.
All hand signals?
I mean, it's hand signals. It's getting dialed into the plays and knowing the audible system, knowing the checks, having a hand system and signal system for your whole offense, basically. And it may be a little bit of like simplify it down a tad bit too, because if it is noisy and you don't have communication, you got to have some stuff to go to. So there's a lot of preparation that goes into this. Is the stage going to be too big for these young players that haven't been to the playoffs? No, that's one of the most candy coated bullshit like things you could ever say. Like, no, like the NFL's too big for them now that they're here. No, I've dreamt of this my whole life. I'm going to learn how to play at this level.
Yep.
These guys have been waiting to get there. They're primed and ready. There's no like coming out flat. There's no coming out with this big game's too big. They're ready to come out and show everybody we're a damn good football team.
98, were you a rookie?
No, my second year.
It was in your second year.
Yeah.
But you're still a young player on the team.
Yep.
I mean, do you feel at that point you're enough of a leader in the locker room to be able to give speeches if a speech needed to be made? I mean, when did you start to feel your vocal leadership take place or take form? Was that something that took a while to come, or was like right off the bat when you became a starter, you felt comfortable doing that? How did that look for you?
I never hesitated to stand up and say what I felt was right at the right time. If that was mostly would be centered around effort and the guys, like if I could sense that the game meant something to them or not. Even my freshman year at ASU, I stood up in front of the whole team and spoke about how we lost a game and we're laughing on the plane. And I think that's wrong. And our seniors deserve a chance to go to a bowl game. And I didn't have anybody tell me that. I just felt like, hey, I'm giving 100%. Why isn't everybody else? Why doesn't it matter as much to them as it does to me? So year two in 98, that team, that it was my team. I was the leader. I was the quarterback. I'd played my rookie year, the end of the year, and did well and had some really games where we felt the momentum shifting and like, wow, we're going to be a good team next year, even though we struggled and had a really hot ending to the season. The cardiac cards, we won like 4 games, come from behind victories to clinch a playoff just to get into it. So at that point, I was the leader, and there were other guys though. There was the guys you need around you. Where this team, I don't really see the Rod Smiths or like in Arizona, the Larry Centers, the Lomas Brown, the Jameer Millers, the guys on every aspect of the game that I didn't have to go pump the defense up. They were going to be ready because Ronnie McKinnon was the leader of that defense. He was going to get them ready. Same with the Broncos, like Rod Smith, John Lynch, Tommy Nalen. Like these guys had their positions in check. I didn't have to get up and, hey, let's go. This is our moment. Like, no, man, we all knew it. If I had to, of course you step up, but yeah,
it seems like this Broncos team is similar to that. Like it doesn't, even though it's a young team, like Cortland Sutton seems to be, the leader of the receiver room and getting them going. Adam Troutman, although not the most accomplished tight end, seems like the pro's pro and understands the message to convey to those tight ends. The running backs, I guess the running backs are kind of a young group, but with offensive lines, got Garrett Bowles.
Yeah.
They got McGlinchey.
Yeah, I mean, they're guys that set the standard for their position and come to work and get the work done. There's no doubt that they're preparing well, that they're practicing hard, they're taking care of their body, they're getting rest, that this actually matters. I mean, that's what you got to have. And these teams that go on and win a lot, it means something to them, that the players care about each other enough to take care of themselves and be prepared when the time comes to step on the field.
Sean Payton's been at this as a head coach for 17 years. Been in this experience many times.
Yeah.
How much do you think having him and his experience in this moment is helpful for this young team?
It's great. He's been there. He's prepared for it. That's why they brought him in after, the experimentations prior to him. Of course, last year was nothing like this year, but this year it's different. When you get a tone setter at the quarterback position and a kid like we have in Bo Nix that is confident and we're seeing like when they let him cut him loose, he steps up and makes the plays. I mean, every time he's done this, I'm really excited because I think he's not talked about. I mean, finally people are talking about him, but I think he has every skill set you need to be a highly effective quarterback in this league. And we're seeing, what did he, 26 of 29?
Yeah.
Maybe like 13 of those were screens.
Yeah.
Still though, a screen still needs to be an accurate throw. And he wasn't throwing them behind guys that weren't making miraculous catches. He's accurate. He's got arm talent. He can run. He's strong. Seems to be the professional at that position they've needed. So the excitement rides high because I think, obviously Coach Payton and him have had their ways this year of filling each other out, but they're really they're the two pinnacle people in this. And obviously, I mean, that defense is fun to watch too. You got to admit they get after it up front. Those guys play hard.
All three phases, right?
Yeah, they've shown that they have tightened it up, and that's coaching. The coach's job is to prepare you. The player's job is to take that guidance and get ready for Sunday.
Yeah, being down there on the sideline as the NFL's uniform inspector, which I am.
Yeah,
I get to see, some stuff, right?
I'm sure
and,
you do.
The relationship between Sean Payton and Bo Nix is something that you get to see up close, and they are friendly. Like they are, slapping each other on the back, and Bo's like laughing with him and bumping him, and Sean, calling him Sean. It's little stuff like that.
Really, he calls him Sean.
He calls him Sean.
Wow.
I heard
that took me a while to call Mike Shanahan Mike.
It's like coach. Hey, even when I see him now, I'm like, coach or Mike?
I still call coaches coach. It's just something respect.
No, but Bo calls him Sean.
Yeah, okay.
And so I think that's pretty cool. And I think like the criticism of Bo with the short pass thing that you're talking about, like, oh, dude, always pass screens and short passes. Well, that's what football is these days.
Watch the game. If you watch anybody else play, it's not like
everyone's doing that. That's what's open.
Throws aren't every one of them 20 yards.
Absolutely not. And in fact, Mahomes throws like shallowest and shorter than everybody.
Yeah.
And the four teams that were left in the NFL, the AFC Championship and the NFC Championship last year were the four teams that threw like the shortest air yards in the NFL. That's how you pick apart a defense, right? But for a receiver's perspective or a tight end's perspective, the accuracy and precision of those throws matter when I'm going to try to run with the ball afterwards, right? And so if you're a weak arm dude who put it where it's like, not in the right spot and I have to adjust to it and all of a sudden the defender's on me, I can't make a move. But if you're accurate on time and I can hit it right here, I got room in front of me to move.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Plus your risk of injury goes down too because the ball's in your hand. You can go, and maybe make a move to not take a shot that you might take if you're reaching for something out of position and have a high speed collision. That's something I've watched as Bo's maturation through the season. I saw it early. I saw a lot, enough to be a believer, as that one sideline incident with Sean.
Come on, Sean.
I feel like I could almost hear that conversation going down, and I feel like after that, they let Bo go throw the ball down the field. And even they waited a while last week to throw the ball down the field. Like this kid's can throw an amazing deep ball.
Well, he threw that one to Marvin Mims that was almost 70 yards in the air.
Just go routes.
That's what I'm saying. That was down the middle, but it was basically
get them going, man. Cortland Sutton can fight for the ball.
Exactly.
He's not covered. If he's covered, he's not covered.
Right.
Throw the ball 50 yards. Let him go get it.
Yeah, 50-50
what
ball.
What that does to the defense and softening them, now we can go chip away, and it's much easier. So that was a pivotal moment in the season, I think, where Bo was like, You drafted me. You put me here. Let me go. Let me throw the goddamn ball down the field because he's got high-level skills.
So in light of that, the fact that they did hit Cortland down the sideline last game. They did hit Devon Bailey down the seam, which I've been waiting for.
Yeah.
And they hit Marvin Mims on that 50-yard touchdown that was 67 in the air. They tracked it.
That's crazy.
So he's been able to unleash that. So would that be part of your game plan against Buffalo to attack early, vertically?
At least attack at some point. Yeah, get after it. I mean, you didn't. I don't know what they're going to do because I would have gone for 2 in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Why risk going into OT to put more beating on this body that's trying to make the playoffs?
Yeah.
End it now.
Yeah.
Go for 2. And if you lose, hey,
you still got to beat the Chiefs anyway.
Game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go for it. So there's a conservative nature there that I think that we may see. You never know because some coaches, how it gets in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They coach you a certain style, then the playoffs hit. And sometimes it's not the players. Sometimes it's the coaches.
Right.
And now everybody around you is like, oh,
gets
God.
all scared.
And
right?
they all start getting real tight. And it's like,
super tight.
Hey, this is football. This is football still. Yeah. Let's go play ball.
Yeah.
And that's got to come from your leaders. And that's got to come from the guys that are out of practice right now, going through it and making sure these guys don't get so tight that they don't remember how to play the game. And because it doesn't change, it just has playoffs in front of it now.
Yeah, you make a really good point about coaches in game time. Like, coaches love practice because they can script it. They can tell you exactly what to do. They can dial up the defense. They can make it look exactly how they want it to look. But then when game time comes around, the coaches get weird, man. They get all weird. They don't know what to say. Like, they're not involved anymore. Like, you got to let the players go and do it. And when it's a coach actually calling the plays, are you going to be able to call it in a way that allows them to play free, or are you going to get tight, And I think ultimately it's not just the players that have to show up in Buffalo ready to go. It's the coaches.
Damn right.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's coming out of halftime too with what did they do? What did we do? What can we do? What do we have in our toolbox to go out and attack these guys? Buffalo is beatable. And Josh Allen is a wild card. Of course, he's had a hell of a season.
Yeah.
Great season. Was real close to making it into the big game last year. So their expectations are high. Playing in Buffalo, though, it's cold. Those are some true badass fans.
Yeah.
We just posted, we're going to post a clip of when we played Buffalo late in the year in 05.
Yeah.
And we beat them, and I think it was 05 maybe. But yeah, it's a tough place to play.
Yeah.
It's not an easy place to play. If it snows, you're going to be dodging snowballs.
Yeah.
Like, these fans
There's going to be snow in the stands too, because it's snowing the day before.
Crazy, man. And so part of that for me was like, all right, yes.
Yeah.
I know I got 52 dudes that believe in me, because some of my coaches, sometimes they didn't even believe, but I got my players, my boys, they believe. That's all I need to go into a stadium like that and come out with that thing quiet. That's what they got to start thinking, is leaving that place in the fourth quarter with it's quiet.
Yeah.
It's quiet in there. So we'll see. It's going to be a good game.
A strategic question for you. Sean Payton has a habit of winning the coin toss and deferring to the second half. What do you like as a quarterback? Do you want to get that ball right away and get going, or do you mind waiting around for your defense? And do you enjoy getting it after halftime?
I didn't really care. I mean, I don't think there was anything I never thought. If we had a really great game plan and I knew it was going to be like, all right, and getting the ball quick and on the road, I think there's merit to getting the ball, getting it, and if you're ready, go down and score. And if you set that
take the crowd out of it a little bit
immediately, like, boom, we did this. We're up 7-0. Like, that's a huge statement for the whole day.
Yeah.
But then that can also have it worked. It's going to work all day. And then you don't want that letdown, because I've been part of that and seen that happen. So I don't doubt Peyton, and I'm Sean's decisions, because I should be on a first name with him too.
Yeah.
I don't doubt his decisions. He's a great coach. He's done really well. He's obviously creative. He knows how to use his parts strategically, and that's really what this comes down to, is you have some playmakers on this team. Defensively, they're balling. They're balling as a unit. They got to keep getting after the QB, hold their lanes, get a hand on the ball, create some turnovers. But offensively, what weapons are going to step up and make plays? You're going to get something from Cortland, but you got to have like 2 or 3 other guys that make that phenomenal catch, or break that extra 2 or 3 tackles, or don't run out of bounds. You dip and come back in and make 10 extra yards.
So who's that guy for you on this team, this Broncos team?
It's hard to say. I mean, I love when Vele's in. He's shown me signs since he's been in there. He's been around the ball. He's making plays. The little running back, McLaughlin.
Yep.
I think he's a lightning bolt in a bottle. If they can find space for him, get creative, getting him some space. And then the tight ends is where I feel like if our tight ends show up at all, I think we have a really competitive chance in this game because we don't have that gangbuster amazing tight end. We got a lot of guys that know how to play it and they do it, but there's not that guy that's just like, yo, we have to strategize on how to stop him. So if those guys can step up, I'm looking for the tight end position to be the secret playmaker. And that's not 50-yard plays. That's like you catch the ball at 4 yards, you break that tackle, you break 2 more, and you get 11 yards. And now it's a first down instead of 2nd and 9.
Yep.
And those are the tight ends across the league that are the best ones. They get you that extra.
Well, so much of, to me, tight end playmaking in the passing game is effectiveness in the running game, and then the play action that comes off of that. Like so much of the stuff we did, the tight end was so wide open is because it's keeper game and you're doing a deep over. And why am I so open? Because the whole defense thought we were blocking.
Yeah.
So you have to have tight ends who can block, or else it's an easy tell. Oh, the guy's in here who doesn't block.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we know you're running a corner, or you're running a seam, one or the other. So we just got to keep eyes on you instead of being afraid of that run, committing to it, and then being like, oh, we're out of position. Because I see George Kittle and how open he gets.
Yeah.
And then he breaks tackles, of course, but he's also wide the fuck open.
And he's also a great run blocker.
Exactly. Because he's such a good run blocker. The Travis Kelce model, I don't think is like repeatable. I think the traditional model of George Kittle, a guy who can run block well and pass, that's what you want, right? On an offense, you don't want a guy who's strictly a receiver as a tight end.
I think the best tight ends, I played in the era watching Novacek play for the Cowboys. That guy, he was like a left tackle.
Yeah.
He was an unbelievable blocker, and he could get open, and he knew how to the timing of things for the tight end is so important. It's like you sometimes are not the number one, but you're the number 2 or the 3,
right?
And you got to know when to be that, and the timing involved. So it's a real art form. And most teams that do well, if you look at them and the teams that are in the AFC NFC Championship game, their tight ends are going to be damn good.
Yep,
probably 1 or 2 of the top best in the entire league. And that's
last year. It was like Mark Andrews, Kittle, Kelce, and Sam Laporta, who had a good season.
Yeah,
those are all good tight ends.
And then those guys, they've got to be able to step up. I think I'm going to hopefully see them make some plays. And it's not, like I said, touchdowns or big long gains. It's getting those extra yards, just keeping that. Because when a tight end does that on the road, the crowd doesn't go crazy, but the players go like, hell yeah, baby, we're beating these guys down.
Yeah.
And then, the running back position, I mentioned McLaughlin, but like they're a telltale on who's in the game. It's hard because not one of them does everything well. So it's time to draft Scatterboo from Arizona State, but that's
what you
story. Think? He's a complete package, man. He's a Sun Devil. He'd kill it here. It's getting creative with them and not being like, oh, McLaughlin's in, it's going to be going to him. Like being able to evolve their games too. And that's where I think Peyton and this staff, they'll get creative. They'll get real creative on what they do and keep moving. Bo, he's phenomenal on the run. I've been really impressed in his accuracy. I think there's been probably 10 plays that he should have cranked on it downfield. Like I would not have hesitated because they're there and he chooses to throw it away, which is great. But it's like, man, son, you got to make that extra special throw if you want to go to the Super Bowl.
Well, maybe that extra special throw is coming.
I hope so.
On Sunday.
I think Bo's worked for this. This is his dream.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And here he is. Could you throw that comment up by Paul Schaefer there? If you could,
Paul,
the Snake. Thanks for your service to the Broncos. Bo reminds me of you.
Really? And I wonder in what way,
I'll tell you what way. The ability to make plays outside the pocket, the playing with passion, the being one of the guys, to going to work and being that workman like mentality, to not being a prima donna and wanting anything handed to him, to wanting to just do his job, do it well, and galvanize the rest of the team and having people believe in him, to have to earn the respect and not think you walk in and get it. And basically, I think the spirit and the on-field ability to make plays with his legs and with his arm.
That's great compliments. Thank you.
Well,
that's
it's all
really
true,
what
Jake.
I try to do. I mean, I would like to know too. I'm sure Bo does it. Like I knew people upstairs that I'd love to go talk to during the week because they're humans doing a job that directly relates to our success.
What do you mean? Who?
Like Pam Papsdorf.
Yeah.
I mean, she's up there working with the GM and secretary, and it's like,
Yeah.
I'd go up and say hi to her. Why? Because it was like a breath of fresh air to talk to somebody that wasn't
Wasn't
going
a
to care if
dude.
I threw 4 picks
Yeah.
last week and we were losing. She was going to be so happy to see me. So
Yeah.
there's more to that QB position than we give it credit. There's a lot more. And I'm hearing a lot of great things about Bo. I've only had a chance to meet him once, but I've been really impressed in just how he's handled himself. And word on the street is he's a good kid. And I think
Seems like
human qualities are as much important as like the ability to throw on the run and throw it up the seam. And then, now we'll watch his how he evolves and the transgression or the ability for him to move from this rookie season with such success. How does it go after this? He's still got to be the same Bo he was this year when no one thought he could be anything, while he's now looked upon to be that guy.
Yeah.
That's going to be the fun part.
Paul says yes, yes, and yes to that. So
yes,
I think
Paul,
he agrees
answer,
with that. Let's throw that comment up by Mark there. The game, I think, is going to be won or lost in the trenches. Broncos need to slow down the Bills' offense, and I think the only way that happens is containing Josh Allen. Yeah, I'm excited for that cat and mouse game between VJ and the defense and Josh Allen, potential MVP. Why is Josh Allen the MVP, front runner and MVP, when Bo Nix has more yards and more touchdowns than Josh Allen through the air? Josh Allen's run a little more, and he's got 12 touchdowns on the ground. I get it, but there's a bunch of guys who are putting up bigger stats. Why is Josh Allen the favorite?
There must be you got to earn the chance to be an MVP because Josh Allen had a hell of a year last year, so maybe now he's in the conversation because you don't get that honor as a rookie. Because what if you fall on your face next year?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
Lamar Jackson's put up the numbers that that's the MVP.
Yeah,
you take him off that team. Good luck. That guy's not only. The games I've tuned in to watch him, I've seen him make 5 or 6, and I haven't watched a ton of Baltimore. But the times I have, he's made 5 or 6 just next level throws that very few humans in the world can make.
Yeah. Mark saying that Josh Allen has played 12 fewer quarters this season. So maybe he's come out in some blowouts and things like that. Maybe that's why.
And he's if you remember back watching Cam Newton, and what he came into the league doing was pretty phenomenal. He was never really seen a guy his size throw a seam route on 3rd and 10 or throw this route on whatever, and then tuck it and truck dudes and go get 10. And Josh Allen is doing that again. We're seeing it's kind of like Magic Johnson when he came into the league. He was 6'9" running point guard. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But Josh Allen last year, it was hard to not see him make it to the big game. And I think he's motivated and he's had a hell of a year. I haven't watched enough Josh Allen to know that he's the MVP or should be, but just to be in that conversation, you're doing your job right.
Well, the Broncos are leading the league in sacks. They got 60-something sacks. Amazing. So it's hey, what happens when what is it? The immovable objects meets an unstoppable force.
Yeah.
The Broncos win. That's what happens, right?
That's why this is a great matchup. Because you got a guy who breaks tackles in the pocket. He throws 300-pound linemen off of him.
Yeah.
So this is going to be it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this interior line and then the linebackers and any blitzing guy. Make sure you don't get so excited until you actually wrap him up.
Yeah.
Just wrap him up. Don't try to hit him.
Yeah.
Hitting the quarterback's stupid. Get in there and bear hug his ass till more people follow and get him down.
Yeah. It's
going to be fun to see how they get after him. And then obviously I'm going to love watching this game as a Broncos fan, wanting them to win, but as a chance to see Josh Allen play. Cause that guy, said when I've watched him, he's phenomenal. He's an amazing athlete.
Well, you and I are going to be watching it right here. And
right here.
I'll
be sitting right here
if you want. Yeah, but we're going to do a watch along and we can just watch the game, talk ball as we're doing it. We could even take questions.
It's going to be here during the game.
Yeah, it will. The microphone
might be kind of tough sometimes for me.
You can move it aside
like that.
Yeah, that's fine. You just got to talk a little louder.
Okay. That's all right. Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm excited to do that. Thanks.
So when we played your 3 years as a starter here, we all made the playoffs all 3 years. First year, we go to Indy in the playoffs, got beat pretty bad. Second year, we went back to Indy in the playoff. First round, got beat pretty bad again.
Coach Manning kicked our ass
Coach Manning did
those days.
But I remember, so in advance of one of those games, I forget which one, but I overheard a fight in the locker room between a couple defensive players. I think I told you about this, but one of the defensive players, he was a defensive lineman, was like, man, it doesn't even matter. We're going to get blown out anyway. And Al Wilson jumped up in his face, like, what are you talking about? Like Al had to be pulled away from him because a member of his starting team was already saying, we ain't gonna win anyway. How do this Broncos team avoid that sort of thinking?
Well, it comes from your leaders. Al Wilson was
Jumping on
the
him.
unquestionable leader of that entire team.
Yeah.
Not me. I wasn't gonna. If I spoke, they were gonna listen. But if Al Wilson spoke, everybody was gonna listen.
Yeah.
That guy was a beast. One of the best players I've ever played with, or even against. So it comes down to just that. And it's a hard thing because believing is the most important thing in this whole entire game. You got to believe that the guy next to you is going to do his job and that we got a chance to win this game, whether it's 0-0 or 21-0. You have to never give up on that belief. And as maybe not authentic as you wanted it to be when you're in the game at 0-0, you still have to push it to be authentic, to keep those guys wanting to fight, to keep playing hard, knowing anything can happen, guys.
Yeah.
So for that attitude during the week, I didn't know that. I didn't know about that. But at some point there could be get out of here then. Get out of it. We don't want you.
Yeah.
Leave this
and
building.
he was out of there the next year, if I remember correctly.
Be gone. You cannot have that attitude in this locker room. And are there guys on this team? I hope not. But if they are, then you have to block them out if they won't change, or you have to go sit down and say, yo, man, this is some BS. You better step it up and start believing. Because that belief with all 52 players has to be 100%, or at least 97%. The 3% maybe that aren't playing, that are wearing stuff, knowing they're gone next year, and whatever.
Man, I should be.
But
playing.
The guys suiting up and everybody in it, you got to have 100% belief. And sometimes the coaches, they sometimes you can feel it from them.
Yeah.
There were numerous times, even in my career at ASU, the game against Nebraska that everybody talks about. We had our coaches leave because we felt and they may be mad at me saying this, but it's I don't know if they really thought we could win the game like we knew we could. And as players, if you believe that, you have to make sure that you get a chance to talk just amongst yourselves, to feel the confidence from you, to look in your eyes and know I don't have to worry about Al Wilson.
Yeah.
That mofo's coming hot, ready to go.
Yeah. And hopefully Sean Payton and George Payton, the GM, this is what they've been doing the last couple of years since Sean Payton took over, is assessing which of these veterans in this locker room is going to be part of this rebuild and which ones we're going to part ways with, because there was a team and a lot of players here that were here through a lot of dark days for the Broncos, right? And it's are these guys the reason why we're losing, or are they just needing new coaching and because Garrett Bowles, clearly they wanted him around. He was part of it. Cortland Sutton, they wanted him around, but Jerry Jeudy, they didn't want him around for whatever reason. Justin Simmons, as great as he was on and off the field, they let him walk. Kareem Jackson, a lot of guys that they had to make decisions about, but you just hope that the guys they've left in the locker room are guys who don't have doubts going into these games, who don't think, we're just going to lose this, because we've never been in this position before.
Yeah, I think we've seen what this team has. I mean, they're fighters. They're going to keep battling. And they played through some adversity this year. They've been the underdog, picked to not be where they're at. No one thought they could do it. And the rookie quarterback that's leading this has proven everybody that he belongs. And so I think that this team is on the right track in that regard of getting the right players into the organization. And now it's how you take care of them and how do you keep that fire lit. Playing for teams that don't make the playoffs, that's when you learn even more about guys. I mean, that was my years in Arizona post 98. It was tough.
Yeah.
To know week 10, week 12, we're, statistically eliminated from the playoffs.
Yeah.
Oh shit. We still got to play 4 more games.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my health and wellness on the line. If my 5 guys in front of me aren't playing their ass off still.
Yeah.
Even without the playoffs.
Yeah.
Just knowing that your duty, you signed up for this, you're getting paid. We watch you come get your check on Monday. You show up Sunday too. Make sure you're showing up Sunday. And so you could see that, and it's hard to see some guys that weren't in it, that were just doing it because they want to stay healthy, get out of the season, get their money and be done, and that's where good coaching comes in and good leaders.
And the offensive line for these Broncos is playing pretty darn well. They had Russell Wilson the last couple of years who liked getting sacked, I guess. He got sacked a lot.
Yeah, you get older, though. You don't want to scramble much and get hit, man. Getting hit hurts.
No, I'm saying Russ got sacked 50 times a year.
Yeah.
And Bo's been 20. So clearly Bo's getting rid of the ball, but the offensive line playing at a high level and protecting him. So I think they're all going to be ready to go.
They've been looking good too on engaging second level during the
Yeah.
run game.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I'm watching them like work that level of cohesiveness where they're trading off at the right time. They're not too early, they're not late, and they're really
Combo
creating holes
blocks.
for these running backs. These running backs, like,
They got to hit it.
they've been doing good.
Yeah.
But they definitely we can definitely get more production from our backs.
Yeah, I agree.
All three of them, if that's the way we're going.
I agree. Can you throw that comment up by Paul Schaefer? I mentioned on the air one time, Jake, that about the story about you telling B. Marshall, man, like, be more violent when you catch the ball or whatever you said to him, and him able to internalize that and turn into a more violent runner. I want to see that from Cortland Sutton. Like, he has that same body. He is that big. Like, you see him in person, he's freaky, man. His muscles are like, you see his legs, it's like, oh my God. And to me, if Cortland turned into a fighter when he grabbed that ball in his hand and then like started looking for action more than looking to like angles and go, out of bounds or down or whatever, then that could add an element to Cortland's game. Do you think that's possible that he could add that element at this point in his career?
If he wants to, yeah. I mean, we're watching him. I mean, that ball he came back to,
in zone.
Bo stepped up, that was huge. Like he came and fought for the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about him a little bit earlier. I didn't say names, but earlier in the year when it was like guys that need to step up, he was the guy.
Yeah.
And then he did.
Yeah.
He obviously he's a hard worker. He's working hard. He's doing his thing. They're connecting now, him and Bo. But yeah, a body like his, and what I told Brandon, I watched him get tackled by a DB, and I was just like, I walked over to him just nicely. I was like, yo, man, your size, you should never let one of those little skinny pencil necks tackle you. You should make them pay if they try. And he said, I can do that. And like, punish them.
Punish them.
Get them, those little gnats off your ass and go make some hay. And he told me years later, like, man, you told me that my rookie year. Early in my rookie year, and he's like, I never forgot that.
Yeah.
And that's just somebody that wants it, and I think Cortland wants it, but yeah, you're right. Like, catch the ball and grab one of the, you got a free hand.
Yeah. Start
grab
throwing
a DB and throw him off you. Like
Start throwing it.
These DBs are smaller than you. Get him off you.
And you have more freedom as a ball, as a runner of a ball to use that arm and hit people in the face mask and stuff.
Big
you can
time.
pop them. You're not going to get called for that unless you grab and turn, but you can actually pop them. With a stiff jab.
The good runners, the good receivers, the guys that are doing it every day. I mean, they're using that offhand to create space.
Yeah. All right. One more question before we kick it over to Brandon Krisztal, who's got Sal Capaccio, Bill's sideline reporter, and he's gonna we're gonna go behind enemy lines in a second. But one more question for you, Jake. AFC Championship 2005. We're favored. We're playing a home game against a wild card team, and we lost that game because of a variety of reasons. My argument for why the Broncos have a good chance here is because it's freaking exhausting hosting a playoff game in a lot of ways. Yeah. You got friends and family coming in. They all want to stay at your house, go to dinners, ticket requests, all these. There's so much energy around it and excitement. The Bills have been a front runner all season long, right? And so is there any way that do you think that they'll play tight, that they'll be kind of drained, and they'll present an opportunity for the Broncos to come in? Broncos are playing with house money. No one expected them to be here. They're going on the road as a unit. They don't have to worry about ticket requests or people at their house. They can go as a fighting force and go into their backyard. And like you said, quiet that whole crowd. Do you think it could galvanize the Broncos to do so? And also, do you think the Bills might end up playing tight?
Yeah, I mean, that's one hope as a Bronco fan you want to see if that's the case. But I don't think that Buffalo is going to have a letdown at all. I mean, they were right there last year in the AFC Championship game.
Yep.
And weren't they in the AFC Championship game?
I think so. Did they make the playoffs last year?
So they're hungry. They got there and they really should have won that game. Could have won that game. Rightfully had a chance to win that game. And Josh Allen played well enough to win that game. So I think they know, like, they're confident, and I don't think there's going to be any like slip up for them. They're at home.
Yep.
The one thing that was weird for me when we hosted that playoff game in 2005 was I had a routine that I had for 4 years. And on the road, your routine changes. You know that.
Yeah.
But when you're home, that's the beauty of being home.
Yeah.
The routine is set. And I wasn't superstitious. I didn't drive down this road or tie this shoe, but I had my routine in the facility post practice on Thursdays. And then we had to get on a bus and come down to a big media session downtown, and it just threw me out of my flow. And I wasn't in a state of mind to be like, oh, this is great. I get to go answer questions about this game. I was more like, this sucks. I got to get a suit and throw that together on a Wednesday night when I'm here till 7:30 studying my game plan. And then I got to get on a bus on Thursday when all I want to do is watch film and study so that I can go home and rest and be ready for this. Now I got to get a suit and go downtown and answer these bullshit questions of how do you feel you're going to stop Pittsburgh's run game? Or why do you want to attack Polamalu? Like, you know what? F off. Like, I don't want to do this.
Was
and
it
I
an
had
old
to.
newsy guy?
So
from
I
the
was
40s?
I was a little negative, you know,
Yep.
and that wasn't good because
Yeah.
we've been so positive. So
Right.
that's just my reflections on what happened when I was in this game for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
But they've been there. So hopefully, you know, if there's any letdown, you know, be a great week for them to have it against the Broncos. But we'll see. I think it's going to be a very competitive game.
Yeah, I do
And
too.
the Broncos are not scared, playing with house money or not, whatever that means. The Broncos have been confident in their abilities.
That the money you won, that you're now being able to push in, is not your original money. It's money you won when you got here.
Yeah, if they lose, all the fans here
Because
and all the
nobody
media is going to
expected
be
them.
really nice and be like, great job, Broncos. You guys were awesome. Way to go out there and get your ass kicked by Buffalo. You're playing with house money. We're just going to let you. No, it's not house money. It's for real.
Okay.
There's no such
Well,
thing.
that was going to lead. Well, I guess we're up against it. But so is the season a success no matter what happens on Sunday? Or
hell yeah. Of course.
You're just contradicting the statement you made about if they end up laying an egg in Buffalo, people aren't going to be kind to them.
It's the media and the fans that are going to jump all over that because now we expect Super Bowl. Of course, it's going to be Super Bowl or bust.
Right.
Which
Why
is
not?
obvious. Why not?
Why not?
Of course.
Yeah.
They better believe that or believe that. We need to believe that. Yes, it's a success no matter what. Why? Because we found a quarterback that I think we can build something really special around.
Okay.
If you are a player and you're a free agent, wow, you're going to come play on this beautiful grass field with these amazing football fans in an organization that wants to do whatever it takes for the players to have success to win. And now you got a signal caller back there that's like, we're going to watch him mature and get even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're damn right. This was a huge success this year.
Yeah, you better believe it.
Believe it, baby.
Throw up that last comment if you would from Travis. Jake was a great Bronco, no doubt.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, not only was Jake a great Bronco, he's a great guest today.
I'm still a great Bronco. I mean, I don't go anywhere without people saying, "Oh, you play for the Broncos and the Cardinals." And
that's true.
You know, we represent all the way through the end of our lives. So yeah, thank you for that.
One of the cool things about this organization, the Broncos, is the ownership's commitment to celebrating that, the alumni, keeping them involved, keeping them in the fold.
It's important.
Yeah, it is.
Very
and they've actually, been really awesome with that.
It can be a lifeline to some of these guys to be involved and stay involved and have something to community and ignite that fire once in a while.
And that's stuff that you work on every day. And when we do our watch along on Sunday for this game, we'll talk about that stuff because we'll have like 3 hours to chat as we're watching the game. So we can talk about
people be able to send in
people will be able to
that'd
do
be
this.
a great time for, if you have questions about what I'm up to and what's going on with Umbo and you want to be a believer and an unbeliever, give it a shot. Give us a shout, send us a question. But anyway, either way, I'm excited. You'll see my fire again get lit up when I'm watching the game. You can't help it. It's just it bubbles back up in our bodies. It's like medicine. You know, you take the medicine and sometimes it bubbles back up.
Yeah, it bubbles back up even.
Maybe that was a stretch.
All right. Well, hey,
I'm a boat to be done with this
you are
if you keep that up.
All right. Well, you're done anyway, regardless. So thank you, Jake, for joining us. We're gonna be back on Sunday with the watch along. But give it to me right here. One shot. Bring it over. Yes. All right. Now is about the time in the show. We're gonna kick it over to our man, Brandon Krisztal, who's got Sal Capaccio, Bills sideline reporter. That's right. He's going to take us behind enemy lines and get the Bills scouting report and what we as Bronco fans can look for from the Bills on Sunday. Here's Brandon and Sal.
Nate, thanks to Jake the Snake. Always cool when Jake the Snake stops by. But we are going to go behind enemy lines, head out to Buffalo. And as we're taping this, it's before the locker room opens. So we will start, though, with my pal here, Sal Capaccio, at Sal Sports on Twitter, the sideline reporter for a long time now for the Buffalo Bills. And I know you don't know what is going to be said, but does Von Miller normally talk on Wednesdays? Are you expecting to chat with Von and see how many times he calls the Broncos we?
It's so funny you asked me that because I think I just heard in the media room we are expected to hear from Von today. It's kind of hit and miss on Wednesdays with him. We always get Josh Allen, and then oftentimes we'll get either Taron Johnson or Greg Rousseau or somebody from the defense. A lot of times it is Von, and apparently it will be Von Miller today when we go out to open locker room.
Okay, so we know how Von tends to operate, and he loves everything, loves the Broncos. Garrett Bowles, who was excited to see Von, did mention how Von is a Bronco through and through, and we've heard him, I think, even before the Monday night game last year, call the Broncos we got Russell Wilson, all of that. But I ran into somebody who works with him that's still here in town that flies back and forth, and they said that they're hoping for obviously an upset of the Broncos, if you will, an upset to Broncos country. But and there was actually a really good column Sean Keeler wrote where he tracked down his mom, Gloria, and Von Sr., his dad. And they admit that, they've cheered for the Broncos for so long that it will be not necessarily split loyalties, but it's hard to just put that fanship in their back pocket. And I think it's probably hard for Von knowing he still has a handful of teammates and what Broncos colors mean to him and what he means to Broncos country.
Oh, no doubt. Listen, I mean, I think you and I have been around this business long enough, Brendan, where you get guys who leave who are still a part of your organization. And we've seen that here in Buffalo. Jordan Poyer's in Miami, for crying out loud. Right. And yet he still has ties. He was a member of the Miami Dolphins and still played in Josh Allen's charity softball event. He was the only non-Bills player on another team that did it because it meant so much to him to be a part of this culture and this organization. And that's Von Miller, obviously, and speaks volumes to his loyalty and what he means to the Denver Broncos. But, Von Miller wants to win a Super Bowl. He wants to get back to the Super Bowl. He was the MVP of, as you know, Super Bowl 50, of course, out there in Denver. He wants to be able to do that. And, it's really funny that, last year he was just kind of a shell of himself. He was coming off the injury and everybody kind of waited for him. When's he going to be back? When's he going to be back? And he never really got there. This year's been different. They've been giving him a lighter workload. He's been efficient. I think he's played very good football this year. The numbers aren't necessarily translating, but he's been impactful in affecting the quarterback. And we've had Brian Baldinger on our podcast here. It's Always Game Day in Buffalo, myself and Matt Bove. He is convinced, Brian Baldinger is convinced that Von Miller has been basically just saving everything for the playoffs. So we'll see if that's the case. I will say last week, he needed one sack to trigger $1.5 million bonus. He went out on a third down in the first series for his first play of the game, and he got the sack.
Well, we do know that we've seen and thought going back to DeMarcus Ware coming in his 30s. And DeMarcus, as we've talked about, came into Von's life at the perfect time. He was one of his two favorite players, along with the late Derek Thomas, which is why he wore 58. But that being a Dallas guy and watching DeMarcus as Von was coming up and playing in college, for him to come here, what that meant. But that DeMarcus was still effective when he wasn't banged up, when his back wasn't failing him. In his 30s, and there's so many pass rushers. I mean, Bruce Smith, who was there, but even I think Bruce Smith in Washington had a renaissance year, and we could go down the list of dominant pass rushers that still in their 30s can dig deep and put up 10 sack seasons. Von didn't do that, but can turn it on, and we know Von can still do that even as he's in year 13 or 14 or whatever this is now. And so I'm sure that, and Garrett Bowles joked, he's like, Von doesn't want to come to my side very much anyway. He rushes from the other side. He goes, he may come over for a minute and then I'll have to send him back to the other side, knowing that those guys are really good friends. And there are plenty of times where even though Von rushes from the offense's right, the defense's left, he would just ruin practice despite going against Garrett Bowles when Garrett was playing maybe at his best in certain training camps. And so I think Broncos fans love that Von is playing well. They certainly want to beat the Bills, and we'll get into the game here shortly. But if it works out that the Bills win and Broncos fans understand they may not win in Buffalo, that for everybody that wants to see the Lions, there are plenty of people that think Bills fans and that fan base and that organization deserves to hoist the Lombardi Trophy if they can get there and get past Baltimore and Kansas City or whoever might be in their way. And to see Von Miller become what I think will be the first player to win a Super Bowl with 3 different teams and be a part of the team, not just a guy, on IR or that played a little bit or played sparingly. I think Broncos fans, certainly if they can't get past the Bills, will be pulling for Von like they did when he was in the Super Bowl with the Rams.
I remember when Von signed, the day he signed here, the Bills put out a social media post. You can go find it somewhere where they were giving him a tour of the facility. And they bring him into the field house. And up in the field house, there's the 4 AFC championship banners, right? Because they went to the 4 Super Bowls back in the 90s. And Von said, he looked at it and he said something to the effect of, don't have that Super Bowl banner though. We're going to make sure we get one. Like that was like something that he saw right away. And that was something that's been driving him. And he's a guy, they brought him in here to be the finisher. The Bills have been so close. Okay. I mean, we all know that under Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane with Josh Allen at quarterback, they've had playoff failures with great teams. And it's just so happens Patrick Mahomes is in the same conference with Andy Reid and these great teams. And the Bills have not gotten over that hump. They brought Von Miller in. This is not a team that was up and coming. It's a team like, we need to finish. And they believed that if they had Von Miller in that game that the Bills lost with 13 seconds left in Kansas City, that never would have happened. He would have finished off a couple of series to get the Bills in a better position that they would have wrapped up that game. And that's why he's here. But then he had the injury, and he was playing phenomenal before the injury in Detroit a couple of years ago on Thanksgiving. And then, of course, he comes back last year. And, now we're in a better spot here this year. He is in a better spot, I should say, with how he's playing. That being said, back to what you talked about with Denver. I've always felt Denver and Buffalo very similar in this regard. When I was growing up, there were these two franchises. You got John Elway and Jim Kelly and Dan Marino in that 83 class, and they could never get the Super Bowl. And, Elway and Kelly goes to 4 and Elway goes to a couple and they couldn't win. Well, suddenly you have a hockey team in there, the Colorado Avalanche, who, just like the Sabres also, hadn't won anything. And I know they weren't there a long time, but the Colorado Rockies didn't win anything. Suddenly here comes Uwe Krupp and the Colorado Avalanche and what they do in 96, and you win a championship. And then the floodgates open, and here come the Broncos to win a couple more, right? And I've always felt this, Brendan, that if the Bills or Sabres were to win one, okay, that's it. Now we're just going to start winning more championships. Like Denver, like you waited so long, you get one, and then they started coming.
Well, it's a good way to look at it. And here's what I know. It's a funny coincidence. And obviously we didn't see the Chiefs' best team the other day in terms of what they could put out there. But just the way the weird scheduling gods work. And it's too bad that Nikola Jokic was sick last night, because you had the defending champion Chiefs in town Sunday, the defending champion Panthers in town Monday. And so you get a Broncos win, an Avalanche win, had the Nuggets. Obviously it would have been a huge upset with no Joker last night, pulled off that upset. Then they would unofficially be the town of champions. But it hasn't been so long. Yeah, it's been a long time for the Broncos since they won Super Bowl 50. I've got some of the memorabilia up here. I have a Von Miller sign something somewhere. It feels long in Broncos country because they do go to the playoffs a lot. It certainly feels like that since Pat Bowlen bought the team and Mike Shanahan took over. I did realize, though, since 1960, I think they've only been to the playoffs 23 times. So that's about one every 3 years, which is, most franchises would take that when you think of some of these droughts. But I was saying all that to say,
hey, there was a 17-year playoff drought here. There was a 17-year playoff drought here.
But what was it in Miami? Miami had something crazy too.
Yeah, Miami hasn't won one in 20-something years. Hasn't won a playoff game. After the Broncos made it, I did a little research on this because the Jets are in the Bills division. I wanted to see the Jets are going through this big playoff drought right now. The Bills went 17 years without making the playoffs. It was incredible from 2000 to 2017. The Jets are in a 14-year playoff drought. By the Broncos getting in and winning and getting to the playoffs, the Jets drought is now double the next closest team, which is the Falcons and Panthers.
And based on their young talent and that kind of openness of that division, I get Baker Mayfield's played better. You got to think that both those guys, especially, I didn't realize till somebody put it up, since Bryce Young went back in a starter, his numbers dwarfed his classmate in CJ Stroud and what he did with the Texans. But to finish off that last point is, obviously it wasn't very long ago that I remember the Nuggets and Avalanche parade. We're talking about just in the last couple of years, but even the Broncos parade was pretty, recent enough that, and I was walking with my 6-year-old and I pointed something, we just saw something. I was like, he's like, what's that from? I go, that's from the Broncos parade. And I said, that was a really fun day because it was. And so I'm curious, if the Bills were to win the Super Bowl, and again, we're going to break this game down here in just a second, what would the parade be like there in Western New York through the region, but on the parade day? Because look, it's not the biggest, population, biggest city in terms of population size. And so I guess I don't even know what the metro area of Buffalo is. And I understand that their fans extend beyond that, especially to that weird part of New York where you have to decide, are you a Giants fan, a Jets fan, a Patriots fan, or a Bills fan? But what would a parade in Buffalo be like? Yeah,
when I was growing up, Buffalo was the 35th largest television market. Now it's almost 60, I think, which is crazy.
Oh, wow.
think
Okay.
it's about 1 million people, give or take, which isn't, we're not New York, Chicago, LA, even Denver, right? I've been asked this question before. And it's really, you try to put yourself in your mind there to think about it and what it would be like, but you also kind of are guarded against doing that, right? Because you don't want to kind of, have dreams that get, crushed and disappointed, because we've been disappointed so many times. And this is what I've landed on, to be honest with you, buddy, which is, sure, I mean, it would be crazy. We know that. But I think here, as opposed to a lot of other places, it really would be so much about a love fest with each other and the fan base. And we're called the city of good neighbors for a reason, right? This area has been beaten up and insulted and made jokes of because of 4 Super Bowls, because of our weather and all those things for so many years. And it really is an us versus them mentality here in Buffalo on so many levels. And I think that parade would be just the most biggest coming of event for people to get together and say, see, we stayed together for so long and we've supported each other for so long. We're showing the rest of the country how much we love our football team and we love each other. So I think that's where that piece would come in with the parade.
Yeah, and obviously a lot has to happen between now and then, and it starts with this game on Sunday. And so you'll obviously be there roaming the sidelines based on the weather that we've seen across the country and what's still being predicted for Dallas and what that may mean for the bowl game down there with Texas and Ohio State. We'll see. But all things considered, you've had to be on the sidelines for some pretty challenging weather games, and certainly the build up in recent years, including earlier this year with snowstorms and blizzards. But it looks like weather, other than being a little cold, you're going to want to be dressed warm. Not a lot of snow, if any. 1 o'clock kick, which certainly the Bills are used to. The Broncos certainly have to adjust, but weather won't be a factor. No. So what do you expect, I guess, from this Buffalo crowd, which, as I pointed out, and I pointed out Monday on this show with my 2 co-hosts, that it's a college atmosphere. And, Nate played there at least once with the Broncos, but it of any place, Green Bay feels like a college town, but in the game, it didn't have that same atmosphere as Buffalo feels the same way going to SEC games, Big Ten games, really big Big 12 rivalries that I've been lucky to go to back in the day, big Pac-12 rivalries. And so I know that the crowd for the Broncos friends and family that'll be there, it will not be, it's, there aren't going to be Broncos fans sneaking in because there's not that many tickets to be had.
No.
What do you expect from the atmosphere and how much that will benefit the Bills, obviously?
Yeah, listen, this is not going to be a weather game, as I'd like to say. It's going to be cold, but I don't think anything that Denver can't handle. Bills, it's going to be, when I say cold, like not even that cold compared to what we've seen in some of these games. Close to 30 degrees, mid 20s, upper 20s. The real big issue is the wind here in Buffalo sometimes. That wind comes over in the stadium and it swirls around down there, and it gets pretty tough. I think we're only looking at 5 to 10 miles an hour. That shouldn't be a bad deal. Maybe a little precipitation chance. You never know coming off the lake. Lake Erie produces some snow sometimes. But I think basically we're looking at a pretty good weather day, for these two teams. I'll show you something. I want to take you on a tour here.
Okay, great.
Oh, man. All right. So, Ray, real quick. So here you go. I'm going to show you. I'm right outside the stadium. Pretty cold right now.
Yeah,
you see the stadium?
Which is a stadium. Yeah, there's a stadium.
All right, you got it. Oh, wait. Oh,
no, his wife.
I don't know if that worked. Oh, you didn't get. Did it go out there for you?
No.
Did it go out?
No. But we get the idea.
Look, okay, now, but do you see this? Yeah. Can you see over there? That is the new stadium.
Yeah, now I can see it.
That's the new stadium.
Oh wow. Okay, I didn't realize that's where they were building it. They're building it right there, and right there. They intentionally did not. They're not putting a roof on it, which means the Super Bowl will never go to Buffalo. But as I've pointed out to people when they've asked, well, why would you not at least have something so you could host a Super Bowl? Is that Buffalo, like you said, is a city of 1 million people. There's nowhere near the hotel space and everything that goes into hosting a Super Bowl. But what they will host, I'm sure, in the Josh Allen era are a handful of AFC title games and playoff games where they will be weather games. And so the new stadium, which I heard the price keeps going up.
Let me tell you about this stadium. Yeah, the reason why, it is. The reason why I bring that and show you that is the stadium we're playing is 50 years old. And what happens is the wind comes in, it comes down, and it swirls around and everything. This stadium that I just showed you, coming up at 2026, one more year here, is actually designed to mitigate that. They actually have this technology called wind confusion where it's going to hit and come in and kind of dissipate. And then to your point about the dome, no, we were never going to get a Super Bowl here anyway. You're right. You'll get an NFL draft at some point. We're going to get some NCAA basketball. We have that downtown already. Like we'll do, maybe a bowl game will be here, but you're never going to get a Super Bowl here. But 64% of the seats will be covered by a canopy. They did a study that said, and the season ticket holders said, we don't mind being cold. We don't like being wet, right? So like, all right, how are we going to do that? So they're going to cover them. So my point is, the wind here at this stadium does impact the game. And I don't think it's going to be that windy in this game, but it is still tricky. I remember I was there as a kid at Syracuse University going back to games. David Treadwell missed 3 kicks in the AFC Championship game in 1991. Carlton Bailey has the pick 6. The Bills played awful that game. They both beat the Broncos because David Treadwell missed a bunch of kicks in the game. That can definitely happen inside the stadium regardless of the conditions because that wind makes it swirl.
Well, and even Will Lutz last year on Monday Night Football.
Yes.
We all remember the big win, but there was an extra Bills player and a missed field goal that made
exactly right.
Created that opportunity for Will to get another crack at it. But it wasn't that windy on that Monday night either when the Broncos were there. And yeah, you had I know people were curious. The Broncos are leaving Friday afternoon. I've been told. So they're leaving Friday afternoon.
I texted you and asked because I remember last year Sean Payton came in early and then very rare. Now I fly with the Bills on the team charter because I'm on the radio broadcast. The Bills play a lot of Monday night games over the last several years. Sunday night games. We've never stayed overnight unless there was a weather issue, which happened once or twice. We've never stayed overnight to the next morning, but the Broncos did that when they came to Buffalo last year.
Yeah, not only did that, they did some of their recovery stuff and kind of film review and their media, because Sean does his Monday conference call, and then a couple players, and it was either Alex Singleton or Javonte Williams, I can't remember who, was like, yeah, we're still stuck here because the plane isn't ready to take off. And there were mechanical issues, and I'm not sure the team was in a hurry to let that get out there. I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's not a state secret. But yeah, so they're going to fly out Friday and try to adjust as best they can. But you can only do so much in terms of the sports science of it all and getting a little more rest and adjusting to time zones. When I look at these matchups, the Broncos offense has certainly returned to respectability, and they're now 10th in scoring, but they've seen the number 1 scoring offense earlier in the year, or the Ravens were ranked number 1 when they saw them. As it stands now, the Bills and Josh Allen and company are second. And we know that they go as far as Josh goes. It is interesting when you compare his numbers to Lamar's, and the MVP vote is going to be fascinating. I don't think anyone will be surprised if Josh wins MVP. And I think maybe one thing that surprised me, though, is it feels like he's protecting the ball as well as he has this year during the regular season. I didn't realize how well he protects the ball in the playoffs, where it was 21 touchdowns against just 4 picks. So when they've lost these games, I'm not saying that a pick doesn't hurt you, but it hasn't been a 3-pick game or pick sixes. Nope. But what's the expectation? Because we saw a Superman performance from Josh when y'all went to the Rams game in LA and still came up short. But what's the expectation of Josh in this offense against the Broncos defense, which is ranked, depending on your metric, top 5 in almost every category, but number 1 in sacks, number 2 in points, number 3 against the run?
Yeah, we're 18 minutes in and finally we're talking about the matchup. That's how fun this is, right? So listen, I think the Bills will play this game and they'll try to play this game to say, look, we don't think that the Broncos offense can keep up with us if we don't give them extra opportunities, right? So what does that mean? Don't give them extra opportunities. Remember last year, you come here, Brennan, you refer to that game, which is they raked the ball out of James Cook on the first play of the game. First play of the game was a fumble. Later, Josh Allen off Gabe Davis's hands, interception. Later, another James Cook fumble. That allowed the Broncos to stay in the game and ultimately win it at the end. I think that's the formula for Denver, and the Bills know, like, don't let them do that. But I don't think they're going to ask Josh to put on the cape. It's, hey, we might need to play a more conservative game, but we think that we can, as long as we don't give them opportunities, we'll be okay. Now, that being said, they're still going to have to score points. And I think even though the Broncos pass rush is amazing and everybody's very aware of that, Patrick Surtain is amazing. I think 2 things that could play into the Bills' hands on that side of the ball. Number 1, the Bills don't have a true number 1 for Patrick Surtain to go and shadow. Right. I mean, they distribute it to everybody. They really, truly have what they call here an everybody eats mantra. I mean, you can throw it to anybody. And at any point, Josh doesn't have Stephon where he's got to lean on him and throw him all the time. The Bills scored 44 points in Detroit. Amari Cooper had 0 targets. Right. I mean, like, they scored 44 points without that. And I think the second thing is, speaking of that Detroit game, the area where the Bills really hurt the Lions when they beat them, I think is similar here against the Broncos, which is Broncos linebackers in coverage. I think the Bills will really look to work the middle of the field, work the second level. That'll get Josh the ball out of his hands quickly to mitigate the pass rush. They have 3 very good pass-catching running backs in James Cook, Ty Johnson, and Ray Davis. They have 2 good tight ends in Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, Khalil Shakir in the slot. I think that's the area of the field where the Bills will try to work. And when the Broncos do rush, when they do say, hey, let's try and force Josh into a mistake, look, he's been great at protecting the ball, and you turn your back to Josh Allen, you're playing man-to-man defense and running, that's when Josh gets loose and obviously has a big gain.
Yeah, and when you look at those numbers, they've only given the ball away, whether it be Josh and a handful of interceptions or fumbles lost, just 8 times all year, which is remarkable. That's best in the league. And we've talked so much here about Bo Nix as a rookie, and I think it's always impressive when rookies have, I guess, abnormal stats. They've only been sacked 3 times, have the Broncos, or has Bo Nix, but it's 24 times. So that's third best in the league. Josh Allen has only been sacked 14, I guess. I don't know how many sacks were given up to the backup last week, but even in general, 14 times totaled.
I think this is the best sack team versus the best protection team. I think that's what this is with the O line and the D line.
Yeah, and so who will end up making that mistake or not? You know, not living up to their billing, I guess, is going to be fascinating. You know, we started by talking about Von Miller off the top. The Bills don't blow you away with their pass rush numbers, but it isn't like certain teams that only rely on one guy. You know, I think about the Raiders with Wilkins out. If you can neutralize Max Crosby, no one else is doing anything. Well, we know what Vaughn can do, but Greg Rousseau leading in sacks, AJ Epinesa right there as well, and Ed Oliver inside. Ed Oliver has shown why he's a top 10 pick year in, year out, and has certainly made some big plays against the Broncos. But they are susceptible in the passing game a little bit, and even though the numbers are respectable in terms of rush defense, I know you think that the Broncos, if they had a better rushing attack, and perhaps next week if the Bills advance and have to go to Baltimore, that will certainly be a handful. But why have they been, I guess, inconsistent in their run defense? And I guess why are the numbers in their pass defense, skewing negative, even though it's not egregious?
A lot of it is scheme and the way they structure their personnel. So you're a football guy, and a lot of your listeners and viewers will understand when I say, football has evolved, and we don't have Ray Lewis's in the middle of fields anymore. Right. Except
Roquan Smith, maybe. But I get it.
Right.
I get it.
The Bills have really, I think over the last several years, they've really wanted athletic linebackers who can move sideline to sideline and cover. And that's made them a little more susceptible. They've also have a smaller interior defensive lineman like Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver's undersized. The Bills run a penetrating one gap scheme. They want to penetrate. Well, that opens up running lanes sometimes. And I think the Bills have had this philosophy, to be honest with you, buddy, which is, and it doesn't have to be a perfect one. I'm not saying it's the right philosophy, but it's worked for them, which is we'll invite you to run the ball. In this day and age, we don't care if you run the ball, because as long as you run the ball, that means you're going to have to fight for another down. We don't care if you complete the ball in front of us. We're going to come up and make a tackle. The Bills' pass numbers are a little skewed because they kind of let you catch the ball in front of them. And what they do is they wait for you to make a mistake. The Bills have 24 turnovers on the year, the most in the league. Their philosophy is, we're going to make you play as much as possible, down by down by down, make another snap. You're going to make a mistake. We're not going to make it. We're going to take the ball away, or we're going to buckle down in the red zone. And that largely has worked. What they don't allow is to beat you over the top. The Bills lead the league once again. They do this almost every year now under Sean McDermott, in fewest pass plays allowed over the top of them. It's tough to beat them because they have this sound structure with an undersized athletic defense, but that does hurt them in the running game, which is why Derrick Henry is a tough matchup for them, right? You go big, they bring out these tight ends and this fullback and Derrick Henry, bam. I mean, it's a long day at the office for the Bills, and they have to adjust a little bit personnel wise. So that's why I think when I say, look, you're already a little susceptible to the run, but this is not a team, the Broncos, that really are terrific at running the ball. The Broncos will have a few little opportunity because the way the Bills do play defense, the Broncos will have a little opportunity to run the ball, and they'll have to capitalize when they do.
All right. I asked you this earlier in the week via text, and then shared your text on the show on Monday with Nate and Liv. But as it's gone on now through the week, what makes Bills fans nervous, if at all, about this game? And I guess kind of finish the sentence: the Broncos will win if.
I think the Broncos will win if the Buffalo Bills offense doesn't have a good day, which is possible, because at this time of year, sometimes you need that number one. You need that guy who can really step up and make a play. You can't always rely on Josh Allen. Yes, you've been able to do that. He's put the Superman cape on. But if the Broncos can get to him, if they can force a couple of mistakes, they'll do it just like they did on Monday Night Football last year. I think that's the key to this game. I'll also say this, one big area in this game where I think the Broncos can really try to take advantage is in special teams, especially with Marvin Mims. He's fantastic. We know that. Something coming down here from the Bills this week, the Marvin Mims is number 1 in the NFL, as you know, punt return yardage, over 15 a return. Number 4 is Brandon Codrington of the Bills. He's injured right now. He has a hamstring injury. He's not practicing today. I don't know if he's going to be available for this game. This is an area where you're talking about the number 1 Bills and number 2 Broncos team in the league in starting field position. I think the Broncos will look for an edge in special teams. The Bills special teams have not been buttoned up this year. Oftentimes they made mistakes. They allow some returns. That's an area where the Bills have to be much better than they have been.
Well, one thing we haven't touched on, and I was looking at the Bills roster beyond Vaughn, and I guess I don't know. It's hard to tell on the Bills website, but it looks like there's at least 3 former Broncos that are on the practice squad, assuming K-Jack's still there with the vet Kareem Jackson, but also a couple wideouts who may end up thrust into service. And they know how fast Jalen Virgil is. They saw him here, and KJ Hamler wasn't here with this regime, but certainly plenty of his former teammates know how talented he is if his body hasn't failed him. So how much do you think they can rely? And whenever I ask this question, Coach, like, unless it's a quarterback, they're not going to give you that much.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that they can't go talk to corners about what Cortland Sutton really likes to do, or talk to their fellow wide receivers about, hey, Pat Surtain's awesome, but if you can, find this little vulnerability, you might have a chance. And so, or PJ Locke, who Kareem's kind of his big brother. I guess I'm curious, how valuable do you think having those handful of former Broncos in addition to Vaughn is for the Bills personnel, if you will? Maybe not the coaches.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be for those guys because of the different regimes, as you said, especially from that side of the ball with Sean Payton. But certainly if they've played with some of that personnel, it is. I'll tell you the one guy that could factor here, it's on the Broncos side. That's Davis Webb. I mean, Davis Webb spent a lot of time in Buffalo, and he was a terrific teammate, of Josh Allen and under this particular offense. And I think that he could probably provide some valuable information to the Broncos defense on what Josh Allen and the Bills like to do offensively. And we love Davis Webb here, but, obviously not on Sunday. And he's rightfully getting love for offensive coordinator, even possibly, head coach, consideration. But I think that's a guy that comes into a little bit of play here.
Well, I think you've now given me my question of the day for Sean Payton, because I like to always come in with at least something in the back of my mind that I'm interested in. And, plenty of people are going to ask about Davis getting that opportunity to talk to Mickey Loomis and the Saints. And Davis will tell you, I don't think I'm betraying any trust, because most people talk to him. Davis will tell you that he's different, which is why he walked straight from starting an NFL game in week 17 2 years ago to an NFL quarterback coaching job, not quality control, not some low-level assistant. And and I do know that he went around at the combine and met a lot of coaches he may not have known, or that were friends of friends that might be defensive-minded coaches or whatever, to let him know who he is and kind of more about him, so that there are those OC opportunities, even if he doesn't get this Saints head gig, which, I wouldn't expect that he does. But again, you wouldn't expect a guy to walk right off the field and be a quarterback coach. So,
well, 2 things about Davis Webb too for you. Number one, how about him attaching himself to Sean Payton? That's a great move by him, right? I mean, that's a great spot for him to kind of learn under, one of the best offensive coaches of the last several years. Also, I don't know if you ever got a chance, talk to him and ask him about his hockey background.
Okay. A Texas kid with a hockey background. And look,
he does. Texas kid with a hockey background. Exactly.
I grew up in Dallas. The Stars came to town when I was in ninth grade, and there were like 6 places you could skate in the whole Metroplex, and 5 of them weren't malls. There's like 1 hockey only place. Now there's like 40 Dr. Pepper's Dallas Stars centers just in the Metro. And there are guys in the NHL from Dallas, from Austin, that never existed when you and I were growing up.
Davis Webb has a hockey background, and I think it's always interesting because here we love hockey, right? And there, because we grew up in Texas, but definitely ask him about it.
No, I will. Okay, well, so I guess ultimately, how do you think the game plays out? You didn't really touch on the nervousness, so you can condense that. But is there a nervousness from the fan base? Not from, people that cover the team probably might think the line could be a little high. Maybe they think that's just right. I guess we'll find out on Sunday. But what's the overall sense there? Yeah.
I would say it this way. The nervousness, yes, there's, of course, I do not want to disrespect the Denver Broncos. They have a very good team. They do a lot of things well. The nervousness isn't necessarily playing the Broncos. I have heard people say it's the toughest matchup the Bills have had in this round in a while. But look, they did play Bill Belichick's New England Patriots one year. They did play the Miami Dolphins, a division team, a couple years ago, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think all these teams are kind of the same at this point. It's like you never know what you're going to get in all these games. So there is a nervousness there. The bigger nervousness, though, buddy, is you can't lose this game. I mean, this is the Broncos are playing with foul money. The Bills are playing with all the pressure. They've been here before. They need to get to the Super Bowl. If you would have asked me in August, what's a successful season for the Bills after losing Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Mitch Morse, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, resetting the roster, I'd be like, if they could win the division again, that'd be amazing. That'd be playing above your heads. Well, here we are. They did for a 5th straight year. They're the number 2 seed. Now everything's changed. All bets are off. Now you better win the AFC. That's the nervousness, which is, I'm telling you this, as great as Sean McDermott has been as head coach, if they lose Sunday, it's going to be open season on him, on my radio show and a lot of other places, because they just haven't advanced.
Well, Sal, I really appreciate the time. I know you're about to walk in the locker room as your colleagues keep walking behind you. And so I know you're going to get in and hopefully give us some good stuff from our old pal Von Miller. And then I look forward to seeing you on Sunday there in Buffalo for what will hopefully be an exciting playoff game.
All right, listen, I'm going to text you later today because I'm going out for some wings on Saturday night. I'm going to text you the place and all that. Make sure you come out and say hi.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Thanks, Sal.
All right, guys. Hey, that was a nice tall glass of Krisztal and some beef carpaccio. Great stuff there from Sal Capaccio, Bills sideline reporter, taking us behind enemy lines there. A lot of good stuff. What I got from him is that all the pressure's on the Bills. Sal Capaccio echoing my playing with house money idea. The Bills seem like they're Super Bowl or bust, gonna play tight, gonna fall on their face. That's what I heard there. I'll tell you this though, I didn't expect that the wild card game of the game, the guy who's gonna be the deciding factor, Davis Webb, quarterback coach Davis Webb of the Denver Broncos, spent a lot of time in Buffalo with Josh Allen, and maybe he understands how to penetrate Josh Allen's incredible season he's been having. Maybe he has some weaknesses that we don't see. Maybe he can help the defensive coach's plan. Also, special teams is a weakness of the Buffalo Bills, and for this Denver Broncos team, a clear strength. Marvin Mims, 2-time Pro Bowler, has been on a heater lately. How about a big, long return from Marvin Mims to the house to tilt this game in the Broncos' favor? All right, that's going to do it for us on Off Field today. Thanks for Jake Plummer coming on in. Thanks for Brandon, Krisztal, and Sal Capaccio taking us behind enemy lines. Tomorrow, we're going to have a special edition of Off Field. Benny Fowler, former Denver Broncos receiver and Super Bowl champion, will be here chopping up this matchup with us. We're going to have another episode on Friday. And, of course, please tune in to our watch-along on Sunday. If you like what Jake and I were talking about earlier, we're going to talk ball for 3 straight hours. Going to have some surprises for you, maybe even another guest or two. But what we will be doing is watching the game along with you guys and talking about what we see. And if you got questions for Jake, you can throw them up there and I'll pose them to him, and we can just chat about what we're seeing. And what we're seeing, hopefully, is a Broncos victory in Buffalo. Time will tell. We'll be here with you throughout to prepare you for the game, up into the game, during the game, and then after the game as well with a post-game show. I'm Nate Jackson. This is Off Field, Guerrilla Sports. Later.